The message arrived during a standard atmospheric monitoring shift at the Himalayan Space Observatory. Dr. Sarah Chen almost dismissed it as another piece of space debris data until she noticed the signal's perfect mathematical sequence, too perfect to be natural. "Director Walsh, you need to see this," she called, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The message was simple. Earth had been invited to participate in the Galactic Olympic Federation trials. The next 48 hours became a blur of government meetings, scientific analysis, and heated debates. In a Seoul conference room, representatives from every major space agency gathered to discuss the invitation. The aliens' message had been clear. They had been watching Earth for decades, assessing its potential for inclusion in their prestigious sporting organization. "They're calling us what?" General Miranda Santos of the Brazilian Space Command demanded, her hologram flickering slightly. "A nascent species with interesting environmental adaptations," Dr. Chen quoted, projecting the translated message. "They seem particularly interested in our ability to function in what they term extreme gravity conditions." The room erupted in murmurs. Earth's gravity, it turned out, was nearly twice what most spacefaring civilizations considered comfortable. The aliens' message included detailed specifications for their standard competition environments: gravity levels, atmospheric pressure, temperature ranges. By their standards, Earth was a pressure cooker of hostile conditions. "They expect us to decline," Director Walsh said, his weathered face thoughtful. "The message includes several diplomatic ways to refuse. They think we're not ready. More likely they think we'll embarrass ourselves," Santos countered, leaning forward. "But that's exactly why we should accept." The decision wasn't unanimous, but Earth accepted the invitation. The next challenge was selecting the team. They needed athletes who could showcase humanity's unique capabilities, not just physical strength, but the adaptability that had allowed humans to thrive in every environment their world had thrown at them. Kai Patterson was climbing in the Rockies when they found him. The free solo climber had made a name for himself scaling peaks that required oxygen masks, moving with casual grace in conditions that should have been debilitating. Maya Patel was breaking deep diving records in the Indian Ocean, her body adapted to pressure changes that the aliens' data suggested should be fatal. Jun Kim was a parkour artist who had transformed Seoul's vertical cityscape into his personal training ground, his movements demonstrating the human ability to turn any environment into an advantage. When the alien observation team arrived to evaluate Earth's facilities, they were horrified. Their environmental suits, designed for what they considered extreme conditions, barely handled Earth's normal atmosphere. "Your training methods violate every safety protocol in the Federation database," the lead observer, a tall, iridescent being who called herself Aurora, stated. Her translator rendered her agitation as a slight shimmer in her voice. "Those protocols were written for different species," Dr. Chen explained, watching Kai demonstrate a climbing technique on the facility's wall. "Human bodies are designed to adapt to stress. Adaptation through deliberate stress is primitive," Aurora said, but her multiple eyes tracked every movement with fascination. The observers were even more disturbed when they learned about Earth's variety of training environments. The human team planned to prepare in everything from high-altitude camps to underwater facilities, deliberately exposing themselves to conditions the aliens considered lethal. "Your species continues to surprise us," Aurora admitted after watching Maya perform a training dive. "We expected strength from a high-gravity world. We did not expect such versatility." As the training intensified, word spread through the galaxy. Other species began requesting observation rights, curious about these creatures who treated environmental extremes as challenges rather than barriers. Earth's team became a subject of scientific debate. How could organisms survive, even thrive, in conditions that should break them? The answer, Dr. Chen realized, was in their questions. Other species saw environmental challenges as problems to be solved through technology. Humans had taken a different path, letting their world's harsh conditions forge them into something unique. "We're not just strong," She tried to explain to Aurora. Earth taught us to be adaptable. Every challenge made us more versatile, more resilient. As the day of departure approached, the alien observers filed their final reports. Their recommendation to the Federation was unprecedented. Earth's team would require special accommodations, not because they were too weak, but because they were too capable. Standard competition environments would need to be reinforced to handle human-level performance. The stars were waiting, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what it meant to evolve on a world that had never stopped challenging them. The Atacama Desert stretched endlessly under the scorching sun, its red rocks and sand creating an alien landscape right on Earth. Maya Patel stood at the edge of the training zone, her environmental monitors gleaming against her dark skin. Behind her, the alien observation team huddled in their protective suits, their atmospheric shields humming. "This is what we call environmental adaptation training," Dr. Chen explained to the observers. "Today's session simulates extreme temperature variations and low oxygen conditions. But your athletes have no protective equipment," Aurora noted, her crystalline form shifting colors in distress. "Our data indicates human bodies begin to fail at these temperatures." Maya simply smiled and began her run. The course stretched for 20 kilometers across the desert, incorporating natural obstacles and elevation changes. The alien sensors tracked her vital signs, recording data that their scientists would later spend months trying to understand. Halfway through the course, a programmed sandstorm kicked in. The observers retreated to their sealed vehicle, certain the session would be called off. Instead, Maya adjusted her goggles and kept moving, her body automatically adapting to the new conditions. "Impossible," Aurora whispered, watching Maya's life signs remain steady. Her core temperature should be critical, yet she's maintaining homeostasis. Meanwhile, in the Canadian Arctic, Kai Patterson was demonstrating cold weather adaptation. The temperature had dropped to -40 degrees Celsius, and the wind howled across the ice field. The alien observers here were different from those in the Atacama. Massive, fur-covered beings from a normally cold world. Even they were impressed. "Your species voluntarily exposes itself to these conditions?" asked Chief Observer Frost Singer, his translator struggling with the concept. "Without genetic modification. We call it acclimatization," Kai explained, securing his climbing gear. "The human body adapts to whatever you throw at it, as long as you give it time." The climbing demonstration that followed left even the cold-adapted alien stunned. Kai scaled an ice wall with minimal equipment, his movements precise despite the bitter cold. His body temperature dropped, but his metabolism adjusted, maintaining just enough heat to keep him functional. In Seoul, Jum Kim was pushing the boundaries of urban adaptation. The cityscape had been modified to create what the aliens termed impossible routing, paths that, according to their physics models, no organic being should be able to navigate efficiently. Jum proved those models wrong. His parkour runs combined strength, spatial awareness, and split-second decision-making in ways that the alien observers struggled to quantify. He didn't just move through the environment. He read it, adapted to it, used it. "Your species sees obstacles differently," noted technical observer Vereen, their holographic form flickering with excitement. "Where we see barriers, you see opportunities." But it was in the underwater facility off the coast of Mumbai that humanity's adaptive capabilities truly shocked their alien observers. Maya, taking a break from desert training, demonstrated deep water pressure adaptation. The alien safety protocols had to be overridden 3 times as she dove deeper than their equipment considered survivable. "The pressure at this depth should be crushing her organs," Aurora said, watching the depth readings with all 4 eyes wide. "Yet her body is compensating." "Humans evolved as persistence predators," Dr. Chen explained. "Our ancestors had to adapt to every environment, every challenge. Those who didn't survive to pass on their genes. What you're seeing is millions of years of Earth's harsh training." The training sessions continued around the globe, each one revealing new aspects of human capability. In the Brazilian rainforest, the team demonstrated adaptation to rapidly changing conditions. In the Mongolian steppes, they showed endurance that the aliens' biological models insisted was impossible. But it wasn't just physical adaptation that impressed the observers. The human team displayed a kind of mental flexibility that challenged alien preconceptions. They modified their techniques on the fly, created new solutions to unexpected problems, and showed an almost eager response to environmental challenges. "We've been monitoring your team's stress hormones," Aurora confided to Dr. Chen one evening. "According to our understanding, these levels should indicate severe trauma. Instead, your athletes appear to be enjoying themselves." "Humans have a complex relationship with challenge," Chen replied, watching Jun create a new route through an impossible obstacle course. "We don't just adapt to survive, we adapt to thrive." As the training period neared its end, the alien observation teams compiled their reports. The data they'd gathered would revolutionize galactic understanding of biological adaptation. But more importantly, it had forced them to confront a fundamental truth about humanity. Earth hadn't just made them strong, it had made them unstoppable. The final training session brought all three athletes together in a combined environment simulator. The facility cycled through extreme conditions: heat, cold, pressure, gravity variations. Maya, Kai, and Jun moved through each challenge seamlessly, their bodies and minds adapting in real time. "They're ready," Dr. Chen told Aurora, watching the team work in perfect synchronization. "The question is the galaxy ready for them?" Aurora's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been anticipation. "The Galactic Olympic Federation has existed for 10,000 years, she said. But I believe your species is about to change everything we thought we knew about the limits of biological adaptation." The human team was about to leave Earth, carrying with them not just their individual capabilities, but the legacy of a planet that had never stopped challenging its children. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to be forged in Earth's crucible. The Galactic Olympic Station hung in space like a massive crystalline flower, its petals slowly rotating to generate varying levels of artificial gravity. As the human transport ship approached, Maya pressed her face against the viewport, drinking in the sight of humanity's first interstellar sporting venue. "It's smaller than I expected," Jun commented, floating beside her in the zero-gravity observation deck. His body had adapted to spacewalk training with the same ease he'd shown in urban environments. "That's because most species can't handle the structural stress of larger habitats," Dr. Chen explained, checking the data pad Aurora had provided. "They're not built for high-gravity construction." The docking procedure took longer than expected. The station's traffic control seemed nervous about letting a high-mass species vessel approach their delicate structure. When the airlock finally cycled, the human team stepped into their first alien sporting facility. The welcome committee waited at a cautious distance. Representatives from dozens of species lined the corridor, their bodies displaying an amazing variety of evolutionary paths. Some floated gracefully in the station's reduced gravity, while others used technological assistance just to move. "Welcome to the Galactic Olympics," announced High Commissioner Zenith, a tall, ethereal being whose form seemed to shift between solid and gas. "We have prepared special reinforced facilities for your unique requirements." The special facilities turned out to be disappointingly ordinary by Earth standards. The quarters designated for the human team had been over-engineered with safety margins that made Maya laugh. "They think we're going to break through the floor by walking." But the real culture shock came during the initial classification trials. Each species had to demonstrate their capabilities in standardized tests before being assigned to competitive categories. The human team's first evaluation was in strength metrics. "Please lift the weighted sphere," the testing official instructed Kai, indicating what looked like a child's play ball to human eyes. "Carefully. It's calibrated to standard competition mass." Kai picked it up with one hand. The official's monitoring tentacles changed color rapidly. "Impossible." The mass is set to 40% of lethal strain. Would you like me to increase the weight? Kai asked politely. The official quickly ended the test. The flexibility trials weren't any better. Jum's basic warm-up routine sent the medical monitors into alarm mode. The evaluation team couldn't comprehend how an organic being could move that way without technological assistance or breaking their skeletal structure. Your species appears to have no fixed physical limits, complained Chief Evaluator Spark, their energy form flickering with frustration. How are we supposed to classify you? But it was Maya's endurance evaluation that truly disrupted the station's carefully ordered systems. The test was designed to measure an athlete's ability to maintain activity under varying conditions. Most species took rest periods every few minutes. Maya ran continuously for 2 hours before asking if the actual test was going to begin. Stop! The medical supervisor finally ordered. Your core temperature has been elevated for 90 minutes. You should be experiencing organ failure. This is just a light workout, Maya explained, barely breathing hard. On Earth, we call this a warm-up. The classification board fell into chaos. They had no category for beings who treated lethal conditions as routine. Emergency meetings were called. New safety protocols had to be written. The entire competition framework, developed over thousands of years, was being challenged by 3 humans who couldn't understand why everyone was so worried. Perhaps we should withdraw, Dr. Chen suggested during one particularly heated debate, if our natural capabilities are causing such disruption. No, Aurora interrupted, her crystalline form glowing with unexpected intensity. The Federation needs this. We've grown too comfortable with our limitations. Your species reminds us that evolution doesn't have to stop at good enough. The human team's presence was already changing how other species thought about physical capability. Young athletes from various worlds watched their training sessions with fascination. Questions began to shift from how can they do that to could we learn to do something similar? They're not afraid of us anymore, Jun observed, watching a group of graceful, floating beings attempt to mimic his movement patterns. They're starting to understand. The understanding came with challenges. Some species protested that humans had an unfair advantage, being over-evolved for competition. Others argued that Earth's gravity had given humans an edge that made fair competition impossible. But that's exactly the point, Maya argued during a public forum. Every species here evolved to meet their world's challenges. Earth just challenged us differently. As the classification trials continued, the station's scientists made an unexpected discovery. Human adaptability wasn't just physical. The team showed an extraordinary ability to learn from other species, incorporating alien movement patterns and techniques into their own performance. Kai mastered low-gravity acrobatics by applying climbing principles. Jun combined his parkour experience with alien spatial awareness techniques. Maya learned to regulate her body temperature using methods taught by plasma-based beings. Your species doesn't just adapt to conditions, Aurora noted, watching the team train. You adapt to ideas. You see something new and immediately think about how to use it, improve it, make it part of yourselves. The classification board finally reached a decision. Humans would be allowed to compete, but with a unique designation: adaptive class athletes. It was the first new classification created in over 1,000 years of Galactic Olympics history. As the trials phase ended, Dr. Chen found herself in the station's observation dome with Aurora, watching Earth shine as a distant blue dot. We were wrong about your world, Aurora admitted. We called it a death world because of its harsh conditions. We didn't understand that those conditions created something remarkable. Earth didn't just make us strong, Chen replied, thinking of her team's journey. It made us curious, adaptable, always ready to face the next challenge. Maybe that's humanity's real gift to the galaxy. The games were about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what it meant to be forged in Earth's crucible. The first day of competition began with what the Federation called the Adaptive Challenge, a multi-environment course designed to test athletes' ability to perform under rapidly changing conditions. The human team watched as other species prepared with sophisticated environmental suits and technical support teams. "Aren't you going to suit up?" asked a concerned official, noticing Maya standing at the starting line in simple athletic wear. "The course involves extreme temperature variations. We adapt better without technology getting in the way," she replied, stretching casually. The medical monitoring team exchanged worried glances. The course started in a low-gravity environment, something the floating Arethy species had dominated for centuries. But they hadn't counted on Jun's Parker experience translating so effectively to three-dimensional movement. He didn't just float, he used every surface, every angle, treating zero-G like another urban environment to be navigated. "Impossible," the Arethy team captain exclaimed, watching Jun ricochet off surfaces with precise control. "How can a high-gravity species move with such accuracy in void space?" The temperature chamber came next. Most species required rest periods between hot and cold exposures. Maya moved through temperature changes that should have sent her into shock, her body adjusting automatically. The monitoring systems couldn't keep up with how quickly she regulated her core temperature. "Their cellular structure is actively reconfiguring," one scientist reported, staring at the data streams. "They're not just enduring the changes, they're adapting to them in real time." But it was Kai who truly demonstrated human versatility in the high-pressure segment. While other athletes relied on protective equipment, he moved through crushing pressures with the same calm he showed on mountain faces. His body compressed and adjusted, treating pressure like just another environmental variable to overcome. "This isn't merely survival," Aurora observed from the control room. "They're performing at peak efficiency under conditions we consider lethal. How do they maintain such precise control?" The individual events brought more surprises. The strength competition, traditionally dominated by massive silicon-based life forms, had to be recalibrated when Jun casually lifted weights that the safety systems refused to believe a carbon-based organism could handle. "It's not just about raw strength," he explained to a group of fascinated alien athletes. "It's about understanding how your body works, how to move efficiently, how to adapt your technique to the challenge." The endurance trials became almost comical. Maya ran for so long that other species representatives filed formal complaints, convinced she must be using hidden technology. The medical team finally had to certify that yes, humans could actually maintain physical activity for what seemed like impossibly long periods. "But where does the energy come from?" demanded one silicon-based official. "No biological system should be able to sustain such output." "You're thinking in terms of efficiency," Dr. Chen explained. "Humans didn't evolve for efficiency. We evolved for persistence." The technical events revealed another aspect of human adaptability. While other species specialized in specific movements or techniques, the human team showed an unprecedented ability to learn and combine different approaches. They incorporated alien movement patterns into their own styles, creating hybrid techniques that left the judges struggling to classify them. "They're not just copying," noted High Commissioner Zenith, watching Kai combine Arethy floating techniques with earth-climbing methods. "They're innovating, creating entirely new ways of moving and competing." The station's artificial gravity systems were pushed to their limits as the human team demonstrated what they called normal physical activity. The engineering team had to continuously reinforce equipment and recalibrate safety systems that weren't designed for human levels of performance. But perhaps the most significant impact came from how the human team approached failure. When they encountered challenges they couldn't immediately overcome, they didn't retreat. They adapted, learned, and tried again with new approaches. "Watch," Aurora told a group of young aliens, as Maya attempted a particularly difficult technical sequence. "Notice how she analyzes each failure, adjusts her approach, keeps pushing until she finds a way. This is what makes humans unique. They see limits as temporary obstacles, not permanent barriers." The competition's traditional scoring systems began to break down. How do you rate performance when one species treats supposedly impossible conditions as routine? How do you compare athletes when one group seems to rewrite the rules of biology with every event? We need to rethink everything, the head judge admitted during an emergency conference. Our entire understanding of physical capability was based on the assumption that species had fixed limits. Humans proved that assumption wrong. As the games progressed, something unexpected began to happen. Other species started attempting human training methods, carefully and with much medical supervision. Young athletes especially were fascinated by the idea that they could push beyond their supposed limits. They're learning more than just techniques, Dr. Chen observed, watching a group of silicon-based youngsters attempt basic human strength training. They're learning to question their limitations, to see challenge as opportunity. The human team had come to compete, but they were achieving something far more significant. They were showing the galaxy a new way of thinking about capability, about adaptation, about what it meant to face challenges head-on. On the final day of competition, the Galactic Olympic Station hummed with an energy unlike anything in its 1,000-year history. The viewing galleries were packed with beings from across the galaxy, all gathered to witness what many were already calling the most revolutionary sporting event in Federation history. The closing ceremony had been redesigned entirely. Traditional displays of specialized excellence gave way to demonstrations of adaptive capability. And at the center of it all stood Earth's team, no longer viewed as curiosities from a death world, but as pioneers of a new understanding of physical potential. We need to address the scoring controversy, High Commissioner Zenith announced during the final assembly. The traditional point system had broken down completely when faced with human performance metrics. Perhaps we've been measuring the wrong things all along. Maya stepped forward to speak, her voice carrying across the assembly hall. On Earth, we have a saying. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. Maybe competition shouldn't be about who can reach the highest fixed point, but who can push themselves furthest beyond their own limits. The suggestion sent ripples through the gathered species. It challenged thousands of years of sporting tradition, yet it resonated with something they'd all witnessed over the past weeks. The humans have shown us something remarkable, Aurora addressed the assembly, her crystalline form glowing with emphasis. Not just their physical capabilities, but a mindset we've forgotten was possible. They don't just adapt to survive. They adapt to excel. The evidence was already visible throughout the station. Young athletes from various species have begun incorporating human training methods, carefully supervised by their medical teams. The Arathi had discovered they could enhance their natural floating abilities through structured exercise. Silicon-based beings were exploring new ways to handle pressure and stress. But it's dangerous, protested one of the traditional sports council members. These human methods push too close to biological limits. That's where you're wrong, Dr. Chen replied, pulling up the medical data collected over the games. We've learned that most species have far more adaptive capability than anyone realized. They simply never had a reason to develop it. The data told a compelling story. Species that had begun cautiously experimenting with human training techniques were showing measurable improvements in their adaptive capabilities. More importantly, they were developing the mental resilience that characterized human approaches to challenges. Jun demonstrated this point by inviting athletes from different species to join him in a modified parkour run. Each being approached the obstacles differently, using their natural abilities in new ways. There's no single right way, he explained. The key is finding how your unique capabilities can adapt to the challenge. Kai had spent the final days teaching climbing techniques to a group of young silicon-based beings. Their natural strength made them excellent climbers, but they had never considered using it that way. Your bodies are already amazing, he told them. You just need to explore what they can really do. The Federation Council called an emergency session to discuss the implications of what they'd witnessed. The humans hadn't just competed, they had introduced an entirely new paradigm of physical achievement. The games would never be the same. We propose a new category of competition, High Commissioner Zenith announced. The adaptive division will focus not on absolute achievement, but on pushing personal and species limits through safe, structured challenge. The proposal passed unanimously. More surprisingly, Over 50 species immediately volunteered to participate in the first adaptive division events. The humans had awakened something that had lain dormant in many species, a desire to explore their own potential. "But we'll need guidance," Aurora said to Dr. Chen. "Your species has millennia of experience in structured adaptation. Will Earth be willing to share this knowledge?" The answer came from Earth's government within hours. They would establish an interspecies training academy. Earth would become a teaching world, helping other species discover their own adaptive potential in safe, controlled conditions. As the human team prepared to return home, they found themselves surrounded by alien athletes eager to learn more. The station's corridors buzzed with discussions of training techniques, adaptive strategies, and the philosophy of continuous improvement. "We came here thinking we needed to prove ourselves," Maya reflected, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. "Instead, we showed the galaxy something they didn't know they were missing." The legacy of Earth's first participation in the Galactic Olympics would echo through the centuries. The Games evolved into a celebration not just of achievement, but of adaptation and growth. Species that had once relied solely on technology began exploring their natural capabilities. Young aliens spoke of visiting Earth to train, seeing its harsh conditions as opportunities rather than obstacles. But perhaps the most profound change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. No longer were they simply Deathworlders who had survived harsh conditions. They were teachers, pioneers who had shown that the path to excellence lay not in avoiding challenges, but in embracing them. As their ship approached Earth's orbit, Dr. Chen found herself thinking about how far they'd come. They had arrived at the Games as curiosities, representatives of a primitive world. They were returning as champions of a new way of thinking about physical potential. "What happens next?" Jun asked, watching the atmospheric entry sequence begin. "We keep adapting," Maya answered with a smile. "It's what humans do best." The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere out there, on countless worlds, beings were beginning to look at their own limits differently, wondering just how far they could push themselves. The age of adaptation had begun, and humanity had lit the spark that would ignite a revolution in what was possible.